ಬಂದಿದೆ ಬಂದಿದೆ ಹಿರಿಯರ ವಾಣಿ, ಹಿರಿಯರೇ ಇತರ ರಾಜ ರಾಣಿ, ಹತ್ತೋಣ ನಾವು ಅವರ ನೆನಪಿನ ದೋಣಿ, ಕೇಳುತ್ತಾ ಖುಷಿ ಪಡೋಣ ಹಿರಿಯರ ವಾಣಿ, ಕೇಳ್ತಾನೆ ಖುಷಿ ಪಡೋಣ ಹಿರಿಯರ ವಾಣಿ, ಕೇಳ್ತಾನೆ ಖುಷಿ ಪಡೋಣ ಹಿರಿಯರ ವಾಣಿ. ಇದು ಹಿರಿಯರ ಕತೆ ಹಿರಿಯರ ಜೊತೆ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಹಿರಿಯರ ವಾಣಿಯಲ್ಲಿ. ಕೇಳ್ತಾನೆ ಇರಿ, ಖುಷಿಯಾಗಿರಿ.
Hello listeners, this is your RJ Shireen and I welcome you all to Anubhav, a joint project of National Institute of Social Defence, Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, Government of India and Media for Community Foundation, implemented by Nightingales Medical Trust. Project conceived by Dr. R. Sridhar, Project Investigator Alok Verma, Coordinators Pooja Murada, Sai Sudha, Kaushalya. Government of India has initiated Elderline toll-free number 14567. Elders or anyone on behalf of elders can call between morning 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. for any questions or queries and support to elderly.
A very good morning to all of you. Welcome to today's talk. Let me introduce Harish Bijoor to you. Harish Bijoor is a brand thinker and practitioner operating out of Bengaluru, India. He runs a unique boutique consulting outfit branded Harish Bijoor Consults Incorporated, a brand name that has a consulting presence across the markets of Hong Kong, Seattle, London, Istanbul, Dubai, and the Indian subcontinent. He feels branding is a thought that lives in the people's minds. It gets planted either by intent or by strategy. He is considered a marketing practitioner and thinker who is ahead of the consumer thinking curve year after year. He is a public speaker who speaks to corporate audiences across the globe in the realm of motivation, people management issues, brand marketing, and business at large. He has spoken to corporate audiences across the world for over 15,000 hours to date. Harish teaches at the Indian School of Business, Hyderabad and Mohali, in addition to semesters at overseas business schools in the US and Europe. He has been teaching at the Indian School of Business for the past 20 years. Harish Bijoor contributes regularly to business publications on branding, sales, distribution, and related topics. Now get ready to meet the brand guru of Bangalore, Harish Bijoor. Let us hear from him all that it takes to make an advertisement. He is going to share with us who killed advertising. So over to you, Harish. Welcome. Welcome.
Thank you. Am I audible?
Yes, of course.
Am I audible?
Yeah.
Okay. Wonderful. First of all, thank you, Usha, for inviting me over. You are the evangelist who has been coordinating this for decades. And I still remember the last time I walked in there and had the pleasure of meeting a whole group of people and chatting 1:1. But I think, that is not to be today. Because the pandemic has brought in bad habits, and one of the bad habits of the pandemic is this visual distancing and physical distancing, which actually ensures that you and I talk online. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take you for about 20 minutes through a session on what I call Who Killed Advertising. And I'm trying not to make it as boring as it sounds, but if it does get boring, blame me at the end of it. I want to start by saying that, let's make it an interactive session. At the end of the session, we could have a small chat for about 10 minutes on anything that you think needs to be chatted on the subject of advertising. So I'm going to speak to you firstly to say the subject is who killed advertising. Now, if you really look at it, all of us have been exposed to advertising continuously. Over the decades, over our lifetimes, advertising touches each one of us. None of us is untouched by the dirty hand of advertising. I call it the dirty hand because advertising leaves a residue on our minds. And this residue is dirt. And much of the time, I keep saying that we are a function of the advertising that you and I have seen. Now, that's a terrible thing to say, but the point is that advertising touches us and touches us very, very intrinsically, and much of the time makes us who we are. Much of the time, many of our youngsters, talk like advertisements, think like advertisements, and I think advertising buzzlines are stuff that is thrown at us all the time. Advertising is old as the Egyptians were, because the early signs of advertising started on Egyptian papyrus. So the early paper that was put together was huge wall posters where Egyptians actually, wrote out their messages, paintings, hieroglyphics, and they actually put out, large paintings taking the private message public. So if you ask me what is advertising, it is taking the private message public. You have a private message, you want to make it public, and there is a medium through which you make this message public. And therefore, this making the message public, one was visual in terms of the large hieroglyphics which came up with Egyptian papyrus. And then, of course, there was the town crier. And the town crier would go around and start shouting, saying, this has happened, this has happened. And that became radio at a later point of time. Hieroglyphics became our wall site paintings and mobile advertising of today. Then in came, the sandwich board men. There was a guy who would walk up and down the streets with a board attached to his front and his back, and it had a message. And to that extent, that advertising was called the sandwich board man advertising. And this today has morphed into our mobile advertising. So this goes on, we've got television, print, radio, digital, everything is throwing advertising at us. But the contention I want to place out here is the fact that advertising kills itself. Because all of a sudden, many of us are believing advertising less and less. Advertising has lost its credibility. So I did a recent study across 16 centers in India and came out with a research diagnostic which says that only 31% of what is said in an advertising is actually believed by people. Now that's dangerous, which means that 69% of what is said in an advertising is considered to be fluff and a lie. And I think that is where the credibility of advertising dies, and advertising has lost credibility. Marketing touches each one of us, and advertising is an avatar of marketing, because marketing touches each one of us. From the first thing we did this morning, brushed our teeth with an Ajay toothbrush, put in Colgate toothpaste on it and put it on to our teeth and brushed our teeth. From then we washed our mouth with BBMP water. And then, of course, we touched the Hitkari tap. And of course, we possibly used the Hitkari basin. And I can go on and on. There are 81 things that which you and I do in a single day, which is touched by branding and marketing and advertising. And these 81 touches, that toothbrush is advertised separately, toothpaste is advertised separately, the Hitkari is advertised separately, BBMP also does advertising separately. So if you really look at it, everybody is touched by branding and marketing. All these 81 items advertise. And therefore, the human mind is bombarded by advertising from every angle we are being hit. And I think this advertising is getting, it is moving from the sublime to the ridiculous today. I'll give you some examples. Some years ago, we had something called an honest shirt, the shirt that I'm wearing, and it became a huge rage. There was a brand called Peter England, and it said the honest shirt. Now, the key fact is, how can a shirt be honest? Can we make a shirt honest? Are we stretching it a little bit much? If you're wearing an honest shirt, are you necessarily honest? Well, those are oblique questions to ask. But remember, in modern society, we don't ask these questions. It's politically incorrect to ask these questions, because in modern society, we like to go with the vibe, go with the stream. And that's exactly what you and I do. Let me give you another ridiculous piece of advertising. There was this brand which actually came up with a proposition, which was a toothpaste, and it said, "My toothpaste has oxygen in it, and therefore it's called OxyFresh." And this toothpaste was launched in the market, and launched in the market, did beautifully in the first tranche of advertising, because the advertising said brilliant things. Because the advertising showed, and let me describe this piece of advertising, it showed a dating situation. A dating situation between a boy and a girl. And the boy and girl dating situation was, they were landing up at a cafe. They were at a cafe, and the boy was sitting here, the girl was sitting here, looking into one another's eyes, and that's how dating goes in the older days. And in the center of the table, there's a round table. In the center, there's a candle. So it's a candlelit dinner going on. Boy looking into girl's eye, girl looking into boy's eye, and the girl opens her mouth to talk, and the candle goes boom. You know why? It lights up heavily because there was oxygen in the toothpaste that this girl used that morning to brush her teeth. Now, this is to an extent ridiculous, right? This became a rage for a period of time. But then there were, in rural markets, people are actually trying it, trying to see, if I brush my teeth, if I blow into a fire, would that catch extra fire? Didn't happen. So I think it was moving from the sublime to the ridiculous. I still remember meeting the guy, the brand manager, and asking him, you put oxygen into the toothpaste. What a brilliant concept. He told me, yes, sir. Actually, it's like, in the old days, we do only functional advertising. We'd say it's got fluoride, it's white, it makes your teeth white. Functional is also old hat. Now we have to get emotional. I said, wonderful. So for emotional, what do? You create a toothpaste which, after you brush your teeth, you can think that you're oxygenated, and thinking is enough. I looked at him and said, yes, you put oxygen in the toothpaste today. I'm going to put nitrogen tomorrow. Better still, put helium in it so that it floats in your bathroom one fine day. We've moved from the sublime to the ridiculous. And that is the point I'm making, ladies and gentlemen, this morning, to say that we have enjoyed advertising. We enjoy advertising. Advertising is fun. But advertising is not delivering results. Because all of a sudden, people are believing less and less and less in advertising. Credibility is a casualty. And credibility, when it becomes a casualty, it means something is not working and something is not delivering. Yet, in the United States of America, 1.8% of the GDP of the country comes from advertising industry. Nearly 2% is from advertising. Now, what is the meaning of it? It means that advertising is an industry, a big industry that makes money for a lot of people, makes a lot of fun, but then, credibility is dying. In India, the total advertising industry makes 62,500 crores per year, and it's growing at a CAGR of about 10.5% annually. So if you look at it, advertising is growing, but belief in advertising is dying. And I think who killed advertising? I think we advertising people killed advertising. There's a limit up to which you can go. You must tell the truth, but you must not go beyond the truth. I think advertising has gone over the top, totally over the top. So much so that much of the advertising is fun to watch, but totally fun to disbelieve as well. And I think that is the key issue. This movement from the sublime to the ridiculous is really hurting us. Now, I must talk to you about one other piece of advertising that's entered our lives today, and that is, digital advertising. Digital advertising, we pick up our phone, and if I ask around, I'm sure each one of you is on, WhatsApp. If you're on WhatsApp, you're in a religion. Your new religion is called digitalism. I do believe every 100 years we have a new ism coming into our lives. We had capitalism, we had communism, we had fascism. We have today what I call digitalism. Because we're all digital animals. We can't do without our WhatsApp. That WhatsApp messaging, the WhatsApp videos, the WhatsApp voice chats, the WhatsApp, everything. I think it's, crunched the world into a small space, because you sitting out here can speak to your daughter in New Jersey, just as your daughter in New Jersey can speak to someone in Russia. If you really look at it, at low cost, no cost, and the cost is essentially time. So if you look at the fact that digitalism has entered our lives, everything you and I do, much of it is digital. The pandemic pushed us indoors, and the pandemic told us that you cannot go out. In fact, the pandemic, when I was young, my grandfather used to tell me, young man, you are going to do very well in life because the world is your oyster. And today, when I speak to young people, I tell them, young man, young woman, the world is not your oyster. The oyster is your world. And the oyster is your home. Because much of the time we're going to get locked up in our homes, like we got locked up over these last 2 years. When that happens, it means to say that everything has to come into the home, because you and I cannot go out of the home. And therefore, everything comes into the home. Today, let's look at entertainment. All your entertainment comes into the home. Either it comes onto your phone, or onto your OTT channels, or onto your television formats. And all entertainment comes home. You and I seldom go to a theater. Now, all food comes into the home. I mean, Swiggy and Zomato bring you all the food into your home if you're ordering from a restaurant. Experience comes into your home. I mean, there are restaurants which actually send in wait staff and bearers who will come in and pour out the wine and, stand by you behind on the table with mask, of course, and take you through the eating experience outside. Everything comes into the house. The gym comes into your house. The Cult Fit has got an app because of which you can actually do stuff. Yoga, which you and I possibly do at times, is through a yoga instructor on YouTube. Recipes come into the home. I mean, literally everything comes into the home. So much so that what's coming into the home is coming faster and faster. Of course, Zomato had this 10-minute delivery, which got into flack, which simply meant to say that you order in 10 minutes and the food comes to you in 10 minutes. I mean, how can good food be cooked in 10 minutes and sent to you, unless it's been cooked and pre-cooked, kept and put in a microwave oven and sent out to you? So if you really ask me, there's a lot of development which you and I see in today's world, and this is digitalism. Everything comes into the house. Education comes into the house. People don't go to schools. The school comes to you on your app. Ouch, ouch, ouch. The experience of peer groups, study groups, the school canteen, the college canteen, I think all of that has got, shaken and stirred, to use the James Bond phrase, fundamentally because of the pandemic. But that's the reality, my dear friends. Entertainment, education, the gym, food, whatever it is, you name it, comes into your house. And as it comes into your house, it means that your world is not your oyster. The oyster is your world. So when things are coming into the oyster, it means that advertising which comes at you must be much more real, much more dignified, much more sensitive to the fact that the truth cannot be compromised. So I keep talking about the fact that advertising must do a lot of good things to the world, because advertising has the ability and the capability of doing good things in the world. But I think advertising isn't doing that just yet. So looking forward to a very exciting future where advertising is going to contribute to the world, digitalism is going to contribute to the world. A lot of exciting things are happening in our lives. Drones technology is in. Drone technology is allowed in India. Drone medicine delivery at your rooftop is a possibility. Drone pizzas are a possibility. Tomorrow, drone ambulances are going to become a reality. So if you really look at it, these are developments which are exciting. Digitalism has brought in something called D2C into our lives. D2C is direct to consumer. You go on Instagram and you click on a site, and Instagram is a shop, and you click on it, and off comes that lovely guava jelly, which is made in a home somewhere in the corner of of chickpea, and it reaches you by the end of the day. Now, believe it or not, that chickpea person couldn't have marketed this guava jelly any other day, any other way, because of the fact that only the big can market. Not anymore. Today, the small can market. C to C, consumer to consumer business is a reality because of digitalism and direct to consumer movements. You can make anything today in your home and you can sell anywhere. Why Bangalore? All over India. Why all over India? All over the world. So D2C is a big one. There are ice cream brands on D2C. Notto is a nice ice cream brand out there. You order it and out comes a huge pack at your doorstep, and your ice cream needs are totally taken care of. You don't have to go to an ice cream parlor anymore. The world comes to you today. The world comes to you within the confines of your home. I know it's boring. I know it's less exciting than being out there, but I think digitalism has solved the key problem of society questing for products and services, which got distanced because of the pandemic. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you. I'd like to take questions from you if there are any at this stage, and then we could say goodbye. Over to you.
Yeah, please ask any questions that you all want to. Harish is waiting to answer you all.
I was just wondering, is there not any accountability for what they say, what they claim in advertisements, and who is to question them on those ridiculous claims? There should be some kind of a
Yes,
regulation.
I think that's an excellent question, and that's a question that, yeah, there are some bodies. We have the Advertising Standards Council of India, the ASCII. You could Google it out and take a look at it and go to the site, and any complaint that you give in there gets investigated. ASCII, Advertising Standards Council of India. Now, this body is not a statutory body, but it's only a regulatory body. By that, I mean that, they cannot go and lodge a case against the person who you complain about, but they can actually pass a mandate to say that I want you to answer this and I want you to sort this out, and they can pass a stricture on that particular brand. Therefore, today, however, what's happening is there is a new Consumer Protection Act, which is already in place. So, and you could go to a local consumer protection committee and lodge a complaint, and that complaint will be listened to. So there are different committees. One is at the local level, at the state level, at the national level, and I think they get investigated. All said and done, I think apart from this, what's important is self-regulation. There are responsible marketers in this country and there are irresponsible marketers. Extremely important to call out the irresponsible marketers and say that you are doing wrong. Because a marketer doing injustice to society is something you and I cannot tolerate. We've had too many scams in our lives, and we don't want one more. Thank you.
So especially when it comes to health problems, and they make these claims that you don't have to go for allopathy, you do this and you're fine. For example, what's that, Patanjali products, stuff like that. They're quite dangerous if you take them seriously.
The key issue is that there are several streams in our life, right? There's allopathy at one end, and then there is alternate medicine, as we call it. Allopathy is really, possibly much more aggressive in handling what needs to be handled. Allopathy has much more controls. Allopathy is a pure science which has ratification. Allopathy believes in testing. Allopathy believes in getting, go-aheads from governmental bodies. Then we have alternate streams. Now, each of these alternate streams, whether it be Ayurveda, whether it be homeopathy, whether it be Unani, whether it be n numbers of other streams, are what I would call gentler therapy. So therefore, when it comes to gentler therapy, it's extremely important to appreciate that gentler therapies do not have the kind of certifications, the kind of a science ratification behind it, which many of us who are used to allopathy expect. And therefore, if you really look at gentler therapies, we need to be careful. We need to have it totally vetted out. And to an extent, the person who takes the decision to partake of gentler therapies is the person who owns the responsibility of what it does to them. And I think this should be brought out clearly in advertising. That's very important. Anybody who's making an Ayurvedic product cannot claim the sky and deliver the earth. It's very, very important to be very moderate and modest in your claims. Claim less, deliver more. I think that's a greater way of marketing than claim more and deliver less, because there's a terrible way of marketing. Because once credibility goes, everything goes.
Thank you.
Sir, I think there is MRTP commission, no, to regulate the unfair trade practices. MRTP commission, monopolistic and trade practice. What about that? Can it regulate? And especially when they make the talk, few years back, Colgate used to claim that it's a vegetarian toothpaste, I remember. It used to claim that it's a vegetarian toothpaste. Then, case was registered. Now, they don't use that term.
Yes.
So MRTP commission also regulates, no?
Absolutely, man. You're absolutely right. The MRTP commission also does regulate, but it's more about monopolies and less about restrictive trade practices, though it should be a lot about restrictive trade practices, because trade practices which give gifts to people to convince them to go and talk. Let's take the pharmaceutical industry. In the pharmaceutical industry, pharmaceutical sales representatives go and meet people who are doctors, and they convince the doctors that the molecule that I have is the ultimate molecule. Now, under the MRTPC, it's extremely critical to say that gifting and the way you convince a doctor, whether you can actually take a doctor out for dinner, whether you can actually do an event for the doctor and fly him out to Bali and give him a nice holiday, and then he comes back and he's let loose. These are things which are extremely important to be controlled. And I think these controls are coming in now because, the consumer has woken up, and the consumer is that much more sensitive about what is thrown at him. And this throwing it at us is something which we must resist and we must shield ourselves from.
The consumer is no more a bakra, but he's a king. He should become a king consumer, not a bakra.
Absolutely. Not a bakra, but
a king. He should be the king. But one more question, sir. What is the scenario in Western countries? You said in India or globally, you said 31% of the advertisements are only the reality. The remaining is only the tall claims they make. What is the scenario in Western countries?
Yes, madam, I will give you data from different countries now. In United States of America, the total number of advertising that is actually trusted today is 81%, which means that only 19% of advertising is not trusted. Because the US has come a full circle now, in terms of, in the US started by being honest, then it became little less honest, little less honest, it became dishonest, and now from dishonest is becoming little less dishonest, little less dishonest, little more honest. So we are at that honesty cycle. This honesty and dishonesty is a full cycle. Life is cyclical. We all start with good old home food, then go to fast food, and then go to restaurant food, and go to very fast food. Then it hits us badly. We come back to salads, which is health food, and then we come to mane uta, ghar ka khana. That is what I like.
Thank
Life
you,
is cyclical. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. So in India only, it's more unfair practices are being.
Absolutely. At the moment. That's right.
So it's
Apart
very
from the credibility factor.
Madam, I'll give you one more number on Japan. In Japan, the data says that only 2% of advertising is disbelieved. And 98 is believed, which means that the Japanese are a culture altogether different. And you know the stories of, when the last tsunami hit Japan, apparently, people would rush to the supermarkets and the supermarkets had bottles and bottles and bottles of water, for instance, and toilet paper. These are two things people rush when there is a problem in developed countries. Water and it seems an average Japanese would go and pick up only 2 1-liter bottles and go home when they could have picked up 40 liters and gone home. Fundamentally, because their ethos is, if I take 40, maybe 20 others will not get it. So let me take only what I want. And I think that ethos, that integrity, that honesty, Japan has reinvented integrity back again. Of course, it also went through the full cycle.
Apart from the credibility factor, it's ultimately the consumer's choice that matters. Don't you think that it will actually sometimes it becomes a consumer surplus also? Because in an occasion like a birthday function, we order our base pizza for youngsters. They enjoy so much. So that way, the consumer surplus factor is also there. So I am for advertising. So I think you will also agree with me that. So
I agree with you, sir.
Because ultimately, the consumer's choice that matters.
Absolutely. I agree with you. I agree with you totally, sir. Because, at the end of the day, advertising succeeds because of the consumer. If the consumer did not believe what you're saying, the consumer would not come and buy you. And if the consumer did not come and buy you, you would not advertise the way you advertise. I put it this way. Let me put it this way. And this is a naughty way of putting it. A nation deserves the kind of advertising it gets. A city deserves the kind of advertising it gets. A consumer deserves the kind of advertising it gets, and a consumer gets the kind of advertising he, she, or they deserves. So, and it's personal choice, sir, as you rightly said, and personal choice should reign.
That's right.
Thank you.
The final answer to the question, who killed the advertisement, is the advertisers.
Yeah.
What is the answer to that question?
Okay, I wanted someone to ask this. I wanted someone to ask this question: who killed advertising? Because that is a subject.
Yes,
It's a who done it. It's
Yeah,
a James Bond.
all of us.
It's a who done it. Who did it?
All of us.
Who did it? I think you did it. I did it.
Yes.
We killed it.
Yes.
And guess what? Advertisers killed it. There is a golden goose called advertising. You went and boosted it up so much that you killed it. So instead of milking that opportunity slowly, steadily, with patience, with a certain degree of etiquette, a certain degree of even somnolence, a certain degree of sleepiness. No, we went aggressive. We said, there's the goose, go make a big fast buck out of it. And in the bargain, we killed advertising. Advertising is killed by credibility. Advertising is killed by stupidity in terms of the way we stupidly advertise. Advertising is killed by us who made a journey from the sublime to the ridiculous.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are
sir.
you then
I'll
saying
take one more question,
advertisement
sir.
are you saying advertisement is dead now?
No. Advertising is dead. The king is dead. Long live the king. Advertising will never die. Advertising will never die. But belief in advertising will die. Advertising, even today, take a look at the IPL. I do a fair bit of work in that space. There are 60 brands which are advertising on the IPL. 37 brands are fintech brands. And all of them want to earn a name on that. And guess what? They're spending millions onto that entire platform. So advertising will continue. Brand endorsers will continue. Today we didn't speak about brand endorsers because that's not the subject. Virat Kohli is the #1 brand endorser in the country at this point of time. He's got $186 million valuation. $186 million valuation. Last year he had $232 million valuation. MS Dhoni has got a good valuation of $61 million. PV Sindhu has got $21 million. Alia Bhatt has got about $59 million. valuation. These are all the big ones, and they will never die. They will always keep promoting brands, and in the bargain, their valuation will keep going up. I think at the end of the day, society gets what it deserves, and we are getting what we deserve. Okay. Thank you. I'm going to say goodbye.
Out of my
Very
independence,
nice tips.
I
Yes,
cannot
emotion.
watch a program peacefully. I get irritated when these advertisements come. My fingers have always
Yes.
Unmute.
Yes.
not to get
Absolutely.
justice from the government to have peacefulness.
Then how can they endorse?
Yes. I will put it this way, sir. It's a choice. There are channels you can go to where there will be no advertising at all. I mean, for instance, Netflix or Amazon, typically speaking, at this point of time, they don't have advertising. But believe it or not, Netflix is just planning to introduce advertising into its programming, which means to say that irritation will be back again. You know, there was a time when people used to go to a cinema theater to watch the advertising as well. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
and then watch the full
Always.
movie, because we are a paisa vasool culture, you know. We want paisa. But now there's so much of advertising, none of us want to watch advertising. It's an irritation. I agree.